Welcome into this Bible study that we are calling Living on Empty, going through the book of Ecclesiastes. And before I get started, let me tell you a little bit about the format of the way this is designed. We originally do this in our men's ministry at the church that I pastor, Liberty Baptist Church. And when our guys gather, I give about a 15-minute message, which is what I'm about to give you by video. And then our guys get together around tables and discuss some follow-up questions that I give to group leaders. And when they get together at those tables, I always tell the guys, nobody's going to ask you to read, nobody's going to ask you to pray, nobody's going to ask you to participate. You can participate as much or as little as you would like. So we want all the guys to feel comfortable. But man, getting those guys around those tables talking about life, you would be amazed at how many men just kind of watch that for a little bit, and then they begin to open up, and then the Word of God begins to penetrate the heart, and you see their lives changed. And so that's what this is really designed to do, is for you to watch the video, get together with a group of men, and discuss the questions. The questions will also be attached various ways that you may be watching this video, whether it's on YouTube or whether it's on our website, whether it's on my blog. The questions will be there for you to follow up. And man, if you ever have any questions about how to use it or have a suggestion on a better way to use it, I would love to hear from you. But I'm excited about this one as we get into the book of Ecclesiastes and talk about living on empty, because I think this is going to strike a nerve and speak into a need that a lot of men have. And so let's open up our Bibles and go straight to the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1. And man, let's get started with the first sentence right here that kind of introduces our author of this book right here. It says, "The words of the preacher, the son of David," speaking about Solomon, "the king in Jerusalem." Solomon is an interesting man. If you know his story, man, he has an interesting one. But do you remember, I think it was a series of commercials that was out years and years ago, and it was the world's most interesting man. And they would read these lines, and you see this really cool guy, and man, the world just kind of revolved around him. And they would say something, and then they would say, "He is the world's most interesting man," right? So some of the lines, they absolutely own me. And honestly, I don't know if these lines come from that series of commercials or they were said about Chuck Norris. But either way, I think they work. But check this out. The world's most interesting man. When he drives a car off the lot, it increases in value. Now, I like this one. He was once bitten by a rattlesnake, and after 5 days of excruciating pain, the rattlesnake died. That's a tough dude right there. And he is the world's most interesting man. His feet don't get blisters. His shoes do. Superman has pajamas with his logo on it. He is the world's most interesting man, right? I like this one. Bear hugs are what he gives bears. And then check this one out. He once got pulled over for a speeding ticket and gave the cop a ticket. So he is the world's most interesting man. And that's kind of who Solomon was at the time that he was alive. It says he is the son of David. So you got to understand this. As the king of Jerusalem, he inherited a really powerful kingdom. And Solomon's story is that God came to him and said, "Hey, I'll grant you anything that you want so that you can rule over the people." And Solomon didn't ask for riches. He didn't ask for power, but he asked for wisdom. And so what was interesting about that is he asked for wisdom, and that wisdom, God blessed him, and he became incredibly wealthy. His kingdom became increasingly powerful. But we also know the story of Solomon, that later in his life, he turned away from the Lord. So if you really kind of want to trace Solomon's writings, I would describe them like this. Song of Solomon is written early in his life whenever he is chasing love. The book of Proverbs is written kind of in the middle of his life as he's parenting his children and giving them wise observations of life, making good decisions, what kind of wife you ought to be looking for. Those are the things that you read in the book of Proverbs. But man, Ecclesiastes is Solomon looking back on his life and telling him something that he learned that he wants to pass along to you. And that is, Solomon was the world's most interesting man, but he was also, as the Bible describes him, the world's most empty man. Solomon had all the power you think you need. He had all the wealth you'd like to have. He experienced all of the pleasures of the world that you think that you might be missing out on. And when he crossed the finish line of those things, he turned around and he says in verse 2, "Vanity of vanities," says the preacher, "vanity of vanities, all is vanity." In other words, he says, I had it all and found out it was completely empty. Now, here's my question to you as men. I think all of us as men, especially the longer you live, you say, man, I've learned from my mistakes. I hope that you learn from your mistakes, but let me give you an even better piece of advice. Why not learn from someone else's mistakes? Hey, I'm going to tell you this. If you learn from somebody else's mistakes, there's a lot of information out there that you can learn from. So why not take wisdom from a guy who's crossed the finish line of all the things you think you've got to have and figure out and listen to what he says. I had it all. I did it all. I attained it all. And it was absolutely empty. So here's my question as we kind of kick off this study. For the next 14 weeks, will you have the humility to listen to what he says? For some reason, there's something in men that says, you know what, I know maybe you made that mistake or maybe that was your experience, but surely that won't happen to me. Boy, that's foolishness right there. And so let me encourage you, have some humility, tune into this study, and just resolve right now, man, I'm going to listen to a guy that when he tells me he had and experienced all the things I think that I need in order for me to enjoy life, and he found it empty, I'd listen to that. So, man, let's tune into this. And the reason that Solomon wound up empty, and this is really what this study's going to be about, is unrealistic expectations. And listen, guys, unrealistic, unmet expectations will absolutely drain you. And what we're going to hear kind of Solomon say in the next thing is what you hear a lot of men say, or maybe you say all the time. At some point, you're driving down the road. Maybe you're going to work. Maybe you're coming home from work. Maybe you're going through a difficult time of your life. And have you ever caught yourself saying or thinking, why in the world am I doing all this? Are you bored with life? Are you frustrated with life? Are you thinking, why do I keep doing the same things over and over again and nothing ever changes? I never get the break that I think I need to really become the man I want to be, to really enjoy the life that I would like to have. Listen to what Solomon says about the nature of unrealistic expectations. He says, verse 3, what does a man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? The generation goes, the generation comes, but the earth remains forever. In other words, he says, man, people live, people die. Entire generations are born and die, and life goes on. He says the sun rises, the sun goes down, hastens to the place where it rises. Tomorrow is going to happen, and you don't get to plan it, you don't get to question it. It's going to happen with or without you. He says the wind blows to the south. It goes around the north, around and around goes the wind, and its circuitous wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full to the place where the streams flow, and they flow again. All things are full of weariness, and man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear with hearing. He says, what has been will be, and what has been done will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun. In other words, he says, unrealistic expectations will catch you in the trap where you always feel, like he describes right here, like you're chasing the wind, like you're trying to take control. You've got, hey, tomorrow, I'm going to control tomorrow. He says, man, tomorrow's going to happen with or without you. He says, you're going to find nothing but weariness. And he said, unrealistic expectations are kind of like going to the sea with a bucket and saying, I'm going to take some water out of it, and you can take a whole lot of water out of the sea, and you know what's going to happen tomorrow morning? You're going to wake up, and it's just as going to be as full tomorrow as it was today, and it's going to remind you that, man, unrealistic expectations will make you chase things that you will never attain, chasing the wind. And so I want to just kind of introduce these unrealistic expectations for the next couple of weeks. I want to run through the topics, but I want you to think about this. Unrealistic expectations are, if you have unrealistic expectations, you will have nothing but unrelenting dissatisfaction with life. At some point, you're going, man, why do I keep doing this? That's kind of what he's describing right there. If you have an overinflated sense of importance, all you're going to do in life is feel like you're never enough. If you feel like there's something you've got to have in order to really enjoy life, this is what you're going to figure out. You'll never have enough. And whatever it is that you just kind of keep putting at, man, I'll work harder. All you're going to do is just get busier, and nothing's really going to satisfy you, and nothing's really going to change. It's going to be like taking a bucket to the ocean and trying to empty it out. You're never going to get there. So that's kind of what Solomon is saying, man. With unrealistic expectations, all a man's going to find in his life is weariness. His eye never sees enough. He never gets all the things that he desires. And man, he just, at some point, guys, it'll make you live on empty. That's what this study's about. So let me run through real quickly the next 13 weeks of this study. So week 2, we're going to talk about when more isn't enough, the unrealistic expectation of possessions. Solomon said, man, I was unsatisfied with life, so I went after building things and having things. We're going to talk about the unrealistic expectation, how that'll empty a man out next week. Week 3, I borrowed this title from a book. It's called Surrounded by Idiots. You ever feel like, hey, I'm the smartest guy in the room and nobody else gets it but me? We're going to talk about that unrealistic expectation. Week 4, you ever get dissatisfied with your job? You feel like you're working for nothing? That's exactly what we're going to talk about in week 4, the unrealistic expectation of work. Week 5, why me? You ever feel like, man, God's out to get you? Like you never catch a break. Other people have it. Lucky, man, it just all falls in their lap, but never you. So in week 4, we're going to talk about Ecclesiastes 3. Am I unlucky, or is just this all inevitable? That's going to be really important. Week 6, I'll just do it myself. We'll talk about the collapse of control. Week 7, the loudest, most insecure man in the room. The unrealistic expectation of respect. One of these days, they'll respect me. Man, that's chasing the wind. You're not, when you get what you think that looks like, you're going to find out it's just empty. Week 8, the someday syndrome. Boy, that's a hard one for men. There's always something out in front of you that you think you got to do or achieve before you can be happy. And man, what you're going to find in the book of Ecclesiastes, on the negative side, we're going to be talking about what it means, unrealistic expectations, how you live on empty. But on the positive side, the book of Ecclesiastes is the key to enjoying life now, today. So stay tuned. Week 9, the upside down turnaround. You're going to find out at some point that when you start to get it, what this is all about, that right now you're probably living life upside down. Week 10, the fix-it fantasy. I'm going to fix everybody, everything, and I got to get it fixed before I can enjoy it. That's chasing the wind. Week 11, listen to this, the myth of legacy. Most men are trying to build a legacy and not paying attention to what's going on in their life right now. So week 12, why fools finish first. You know what Solomon did later? He looked around, he said, man, I'm working hard, I'm a really wise guy, and I'm learning this. Animals, fools, and wise people all do the same thing. They all die. It really doesn't matter. So, man, that's a week to tune into right there. Week 13, faith in the fog. You ever been one of those guys and you thought, I'm going to turn around and give my life to the Lord, and then you thought your life would go one way and your faith has really gone a very different way, and it's kind of unclear what God's doing and where it's going? That's going to be a really important week. And then week 14, this is kind of the culmination of it all. And I would encourage you, read through Ecclesiastes and get all the way to the end, because here's what you're going to hear. And that is the meaning of life. What matters most and makes this all come together. So what's really important about this study is a lot of guys are built on performance. And building your life and your identity on performance is an unrealistic expectation, and at some point it's going to wear you out, drain you dry, and you're going to be like Solomon, empty. So listen, guys, the book of Ecclesiastes is not about better performance. It's about a better perspective. So I want to encourage you to hang through these 14 weeks of this study. And so let's end right here, the last part, verses 12 through 18. And I don't know how to say this, but I can tell you this from personal experience, and I'll explain this more in just a minute. As we go through Ecclesiastes, it's going to feel worse before it gets better. And that's a good thing because, hey, listen, sometimes rock bottom is the best place to be. Remember the prodigal son? He hit rock bottom, and that's when it says he came to himself and he returned to the Father. And I hope right now, maybe you're already on empty, you're on rock bottom. That's a great place to be. It's time for a turnaround. But I want to tell you this, it's going to feel worse before it gets better. Listen to what Solomon says here, and you're going to hear this and you go, dude, that's depressing, but it's in the Bible. Verse 12, I, the preacher, have been king over Israel and Jerusalem. I applied my heart to speak and search out wisdom, all that is done under heaven. It's an unhappy business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. I've seen everything that's done under the sun, and behold, it's vanity, striving after the wind. What is crooked cannot be made straight. What is lacking cannot be counted. In other words, he says, man, I studied as hard as I could, and there's some things that just don't change. He said, and I said in my heart, I have acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who were ever in Jerusalem before me, and my heart has also had great experience in wisdom and knowledge. Now I applied my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. In other words, he said, man, I applied myself to get the secret of life all figured out. And he said, I perceive that also this is striving after the wind. He says there is much in much wisdom, verse 18, is much vexation. And he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. Man, you read that and you're like, well, then why am I doing this, right? Why am I doing this for 14 weeks? Here's why. It's going to feel worse before it gets better. Let me explain. Here's how this study came about in my own life. So I'm a pastor. At the taping of this episode of this series, I've been a pastor for 30 years. And I kind of went through a period in my life where God was just kind of breaking me down, burning me out on my own, chasing my own dreams and aspirations. And so it's been a long process. And there's been some great moments of him turning me around in that. But there's also some residual effect. And I've kind of been going through some of that residual effect here recently because at the time of taping this, I'm also 52 years old. And if you're not there yet, I can tell you one of these days you are going to turn around. There's going to be a midlife crisis where you're like, dude, either I'm going to be effective or I'm going to be empty. But man, I've been going after some things and at some point you start to realize all these unrealistic expectations of what you thought you were going to be, what you thought you were going to achieve, what you thought you were going to have. And you get to be 52 years old and you realize it ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen like you thought it would. You're not going to have what you thought you would have. You won't achieve what you thought you were going to achieve. And you put a lot of those things upon your identity. And man, I was even doing that, and I don't know what your business is, but you know, I'm a pastor of a church, so I'll apply it like this. Man, I've been a pastor of a church 30 years, and there's been some great things that have happened all through those 30 years. But the crowd's never been big enough. I wrote 2 books. They've never sold enough. I've never gotten to speak at the conferences I wanted to speak at. Never got the invitations that I wanted. Never got the recognition from the people that I thought ought to say, man, that guy's really using that guy. None of that stuff ever really happened. And I always put that stuff in front of me, chasing it, thinking once I get it, I'll enjoy it. And so God kind of broke me down this past summer. And in the month of August, I was before the Lord and I was saying, Lord, what do you want me to read in the Bible? And he landed me on the book of Ecclesiastes, and the Holy Spirit just led me through also another book I was reading to use Ecclesiastes. It kind of referenced Ecclesiastes, and I thought, boy, there's a there's a line to draw that I'm going to explore a little bit more. And the Holy Spirit led me to go through the book of Ecclesiastes from the perspective of my unrealistic expectations. And guys, I want to tell you this. As I went through the book of Ecclesiastes, it took me from August till November just to go paragraph by paragraph through it. And it felt bad. It felt bad, one, because I was frustrated that a lot of the things that I was really trying to do, I got the revelation, it didn't matter. I'm going to live, I'm going to die, and nothing's going to change. Now, I'm going to pastor the church, and it may go great, and the guy who comes after me, he may be terrible, and it all go away, right? Hey, listen, I went to a Christian college that at one time everybody thought, man, that place is being greatly used by God, and it is the standard of what God's going to bless. Y'all know what? It don't even exist anymore. And so I began to realize some of those things that I think, man, I really matter and my ministry really matters. And ultimately it doesn't matter because after I'm dead and gone, the world's just going to go on. And everybody's just going to do it their way anyway. I pastored a church in Birmingham, Alabama for 10 years. And I thought, man, my preaching was really good. And I thought, boy, people will want to hang on to this. You know what the first thing they did after they got a new pastor? They hit the dump button on the internet and erased every sermon ever preached in that church. You talk about a humbling experience. When you think it all really matters, there's just some things that come along to go, hey, man, life is going to go on and with or without you. And so that kind of felt bad. And then as I kind of started to realize some of the things in the book of Ecclesiastes, I looked back on my life and I realized how much time I wasted. Because here's the key to Ecclesiastes and what he's really wanting you to do. And it's really two things. One, he wants you to quit chasing the wind and just pay attention to what's right in front of you and enjoy life now. Enjoy who you are. Enjoy what God's given you. Enjoy the people around you. Man, there's so many things going on in the last 30 years of my ministry that I was just chasing, that I look back on now and I said, man, I wish I'd just paused it because those were good days. Sometimes you don't realize you're in the good old days. That's kind of what Ecclesiastes is about. I told a young man last night, I look back on my 20s when I was getting married, having my first child, my two children, and really kind of starting my ministry. I look back on my 20s, man, I don't even remember it. And one of the reasons why is because I was running so hard that I never just stopped to just enjoy where I was and what God was doing in the little that it was, because I just wanted it to be so big. And so sometimes when you look back on those kind of moments, it doesn't feel good because you're thinking, man, I wasted a lot of things because at the time, it's really not about performance. It's about perspective. But here's the good part. This is what does feel good. Is right now, if you can get the right perspective, man, it's one of the most freeing things can hit your life of, man, just enjoying who you are, where you are, what God's doing around you and the people that are around you. And then here's the second key that he's going to point out in the book of Ecclesiastes that he just wants you to do every day. Hey, listen, I can't control the wind. I can't empty the sea. I can plan the day, but it's going to do its thing. The sun's going to rise and set with or without me, right? A lot of things are just going to happen. It's not about talent, it's just timing. Ecclesiastes 3. But at the end of the day, every day, God wants you to do one thing. Just fear him and obey him. Fear God and obey God. That's the one thing he wants you to do every day. Those two things kind of go together. That's why I'm saying one thing. So enjoy your life now, and every day, obey God and fear God. That's really what it's all about. And hey, I tell you, it's going to feel bad before it gets better. But hang with it. So guys, go through Ecclesiastes. Now you're going to take this content, maybe get together with 2 or 3 guys. Maybe it's in a restaurant. Maybe it's in a coffee shop. Maybe you're using it as a curriculum in your church or with a study group. Get around the tables and talk about the questions. They're attached, and I will see you in the next session.